They didn't fire me right away. That would have been too obvious, too direct. No, they made me invisible first. Then they made me irrelevant. Then they made me the problem. My name is Ethan Ramirez. I'm 44 years old, and for 17 years I was the project director at Redwood MedTech, a mid-sized biomedical tech company based out of Austin, Texas. I lived and breathed that job. I led the development of our AI-assisted surgical suite, from prototype to FDA approval. I was the first to arrive every morning, and usually the last to leave. I was the guy who stayed late to fix other people's mistakes. The guy who trained the new hires when HR dumped them on us with zero onboarding. The guy who flew out on weekends when one of our beta systems malfunctioned in a hospital in Chicago or Denver or Phoenix. I wasn't just working a job. I believed in what we were building. Redwood's mission felt personal to me. Smarter surgical tools, fewer human errors, better patient outcomes. I'd lost someone close to me years ago due to a sloppy surgical error, so helping eliminate mistakes through tech, that was a purpose I could wake up for. But purpose doesn't matter when politics enters the room. And I didn't see it coming, not at first. It started with a guy named Neil Brandon. He was introduced at our Monday morning leadership meeting by our CEO, Jim Dunning, a gray-haired, slow-talking, good old boy who wore Patagonia vests and liked to start meetings with dad jokes that nobody laughed at. Jim introduced Neil like this. This here's my nephew, Neil, fresh out of Stanford, biotech and business double major. He's going to be shadowing y'all for a while, getting his feet wet. Treat him well. He's family. There it was. He said it plainly. He's family. Neil was 28. He had slicked back hair, designer loafers, and a smug grin like he already owned the place. He shook hands with everyone, threw in phrases like synergy and scaling pathways, and asked to be CCD on everything. Literally everything. At first, I didn't mind. I've mentored dozens of new folks over the years. I figured Neil would learn a few things and move on, but he didn't move on. He moved up. Fast. By month 2, he wasn't shadowing me. He was reviewing me. I'd catch him sitting in on my meetings, not saying much, just scribbling notes in his moleskin. When I asked what he was doing, he'd say just documenting process inefficiencies for streamlining. But the reports he was writing were going upstairs. And I only realized how bad it was when Jim pulled me into a closed-door check-in and said, "We've been hearing that your workflow isn't as agile as it used to be, Ethan. Some of the team feels you're holding back innovation." I blinked. What team? Everyone under me trusted me. I made sure of that. Jim wouldn't give details. Just corporate fluff about perception management and adaptability in a fast-evolving landscape. Translation? They were setting me up. Neil started taking credit for everything. One of my engineers, Priya, had developed a brilliant fail-safe algorithm for our robotic arms. It reduced error rates by 14%. I shared it in a product review meeting. 2 days later, Neil presented it to the board as his own insight after reviewing the code stack. When I confronted him privately, he just smiled and said, "Relax, Ethan. It's all in the same family. We're all on the same team, right?" That was the moment I knew. He wasn't here to learn. He was here to replace me. Suddenly, I was excluded from product roadmap meetings. Budget approvals that used to land on my desk were rerouted to Neil. My title was still director, but functionally, I was being erased. Then came the performance review. Jim sat across from me with a printed sheet, avoiding eye contact. "Ethan, we've reviewed feedback from multiple stakeholders. The consensus is that your leadership style is a bit rigid, and that innovation has stagnated under your direction." I nearly laughed. I'd led 3 successful product launches in the past 18 months. But I didn't argue, because I could see what this was. They were building a file, one they could use to justify my exit. I started documenting everything, every meeting, every interaction, every line of code Neil claimed as his own. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going down quietly. Then I got lucky. One night I stayed late. Everyone was gone. I was in the server room trying to fix a syncing issue with our product log archives. That's when I noticed it. A hidden folder on the internal server, buried under 5 levels of nested directories. It was called RWT Assets _alt. Inside were files, hundreds of them, financial projections, patent applications, export logs. They had Neil Brandon's name listed as the primary inventor on at least 4 product schematics I had created with my team before he ever joined the company. My heart froze. They weren't just pushing me out. They were rewriting history and assigning the future revenue streams to Neil's name. And in biotech, that's not just betrayal. That's theft. Patent theft. That night I took copies. Every document. Every time-stamped file showing when they were really created. I backed them up on a private, encrypted drive. I didn't know what my move was yet, but now I had leverage, and leverage is power. The next week, things escalated. Jim called me into his office with HR present. He handed me a transition plan. "You'll be stepping down effective immediately, Ethan. We'll give you 8 weeks of consulting retainer and a glowing letter of recommendation. Let's make this smooth." They wanted to buy my silence, but I didn't say a word, not yet, because while they were busy celebrating my quiet exit, I was preparing the storm. The rest of that week I played it calm. I didn't tell Lisa. I didn't tell my old team. I acted like nothing had happened, like I had accepted my demotion and was adjusting to the new reality. But I wasn't adjusting. I was documenting every email, every meeting, every comment Neil made. I started compiling a timeline, cross-referencing files and timestamps. Using my admin access, I went deep into project logs, contract submissions, data trails from the firmware we'd submitted to the FDA for approval. And that's when I found it. The smoking gun. Months earlier, Redwood had acquired a tiny startup called Vericore Robotics. We were supposedly integrating one of their motion prediction modules into our main AI suite. Neil had made it sound like a minor acquisition. But when I dug into the code trail, I realized the truth. We hadn't integrated it, we'd stolen it. The targeting model I'd been leading for 3 years, it was an exact copy of Vericore's closed source beta, created before the acquisition. Someone had stolen their IP and buried the trail by buying the company later. Then I found the smoking gun, internal emails between Jim and a legal consultant. They were preparing to file patents under Redwood's name, not Vericore's. The founders had already signed airtight severance NDAs. They'd moved on. They had no idea. And the patents? Neil's name was on the provisional draft. He was going to take credit for everything. I remember sitting alone in my apartment, laptop open, heart racing. I had the evidence. I had the motive. I had the leverage. And I had a choice. I could take it public and bring Redwood crashing down, but that would hurt everyone. Even the team I still respected, Lisa, my old engineers, everyone who wasn't part of the conspiracy, or I could use it, so I did. I made copies, secure backups, one in the cloud, encrypted, one on a drive in my safe. And then I wrote a letter, not an email. A letter? It was addressed to the CEO. His assistant would deliver it. All it said was this: "Congratulations on the upcoming IPO. You've built quite the empire on other people's work. I trust Neil will enjoy the credit, the bonuses, and the headlines. I'm stepping aside for now, quietly, but I'd be careful who you silence. Some of us keep receipts. Ethan Ramirez." The IPO was 3 weeks away. I waited. Then Neil resigned. No farewell post, no LinkedIn update, just gone. 2 days later, Jim announced he was stepping back from day-to-day operations. No one at Redwood ever connected the dots. But I got a call from the board's external counsel. They wanted to meet. They offered me a consulting deal, quiet, off-books, monthly retainer. Risk management, they said. In return, I'd stay silent. I took it. Not for the money, for the control. And when I walked past Neil's old glass office, the nameplate was gone. The chair turned. The empire still stood, But the frauds were gone. These days I live out by Lake Travis. I write. I walk. I consult for honest startups trying to build something real. Redwood went public. They're still doing fine, but the ones who mattered, they knew. They reached out quietly, and I helped them move on. As for Neil, I don't know where he ended up, but I hope he remembers. If you're going to steal a man's legacy, you better be sure he's not watching, because sometimes the quiet ones, we're just waiting for the right time. Have you ever been replaced by someone less deserving? Someone with connections, not competence? If you enjoyed this story, please give a thumbs up to the video and consider subscribing to the channel for more powerful true life stories.